and maybe it's something that I'm doing. Ooh, I can see you now.
Oh.
It's nice to see your beautiful stuff smile. How are you?
Thank you. It's nice to see you too.
How's that Thanksgiving for you?
Oh man, so it was a little bit of a mad rush. Um, we had a dinner with some family friends, which we went to, and that was very delightful. And so I got to have my bit of turkey. And then right after I get off the live with you, we're actually on our way to the second one. And
Oh, wow.
so the wife is very kind and very gracious. She's like, I know this is very important to you, so we're gonna stay at home while you do it.
Well,
So I'm very excited.
thank you for accepting to do this anyway. Because I forgot, for me, I totally forgot it was Thanksgiving for you guys. So this morning when I saw your post, I'm like, oh, I should probably text her and ask her if she's still okay with it. But I was like, we're going to go through with it.
I am
Huh?
so excited to do this live. I've been excited about it since last week, and I didn't want to put it off anymore. So I'm very happy to be with you guys. And then I figured too, like a lot of folks are at home right now
Right.
enjoying time with the family. So hopefully they can tune in
Right.
and catch us having a wonderful conversation. So
Absolutely. So it all started for me when I saw you. I knew I wanted to talk to you when I saw you on, on one of your lives, actually, because you do book reviews, as I was saying earlier. And you were doing a book review with Wolf, which I believe was the first one you did.
yeah.
And you were reviewing The Alchemist.
Yes. Yes.
And I absolutely love this book, because it's all about, again, finding and following your purpose, which
Yeah.
I'm all about, right? I'm someone who spent 10 years of my life doing something that I hated until I realized, oh, wait, I can choose. So, and then when I listened to you, and I was like, this woman has so much wisdom. We need to be talking. We need to have this conversation. But before we get into it, I want you to tell everybody a little bit about you. So who's Gaëlle?
Oh my God, who is Gaëlle? Wow, this is it's such an easy question, but it's something I get lost sometimes in trying to describe myself. So who is Gaëlle? Gaëlle is I think first and foremost, I'm someone who's always been seeking. I've always been very curious about life. I've been curious about people, about different cultures. I was born and raised in Cap Haitien, and that's where I spent the majority of my childhood. And I moved to the States when I was 15.
Okay.
So after I moved to the States, I came here for university. I did that. I got my master's degree. And then in 2000, so I got my bachelor's in marketing, and then I have a master's in higher education administration.
Okay.
So what I'll say about this is that it's one of those points in my life where I did something just because that's what felt right at the moment. And then life happened, and then none of it made any sense. And as I get older, I'm like, oh, so that's why I did that.
I feel you there.
So my life is really that story. It's that story of being curious about stuff, looking for answers, reading everything I can read. But in my heart, I've always been, I think since I was a young girl, I've just always been someone who's determined to be happy, determined to be all that I can be, to live up to my potential. And I think the older I've gotten too, I've gotten so much joy out of spreading what I learned from my own life and sharing those lessons. And so I'm always looking for new opportunities to do that. So this is why this conversation, even though it is Thanksgiving, and even though, I had to shuffle some things around, it was so important for me to be here with you, because for me, having these conversations is really everything that my life has always been about. It's about sharing. It's about spreading joy and positivity, and hopefully inspiring people to be all that they can be, and to make all their wildest dreams come true so that they can start living their best life now. So
wow.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that. I absolutely love that. You talk about following your purpose, and I'm all about that, by the way. Not only purpose, but just spreading joy and happiness and helping people live like an authentic life is all I'm about. What does following your purpose looks like for you right now?
Following my purpose, especially these days. So I've learned so much over the years. I think when I first started, I think following my purpose meant for me finding a way to align, align my desires for success
Mm-hmm.
with what I love to do. So finding
Mm-hmm.
my purpose was a lot about, it was a lot about career. It was a lot about work for a really long time. And the older I've gotten and sort of life has had its way with me. If anybody has read The Alchemist, I suggest that they read it, because one of the reasons why that book was so profound for me is because it's a book that every time I read it, I'm at a different place in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I read it, I learn something new about me, and it helps me make sense of the life and sort of the wisdom that I'm getting from the life. But these days, when I think about my purpose, I think my purpose is a little bit more self-centered than it used to be, if I'm completely honest. I used to
And
feel like
that's
my
okay.
purpose was to go out into the world, to make the world a better place. I used to feel like my purpose was tied to, in some way, changing how people were living their life, or helping people transform themselves to be more content and happy with who they are.
Mm-hmm.
These days, it's much more simple. My purpose is to have a good day. My purpose is to be
Oh.
now. My purpose is to be as appreciative as I can be, and to
Mm-hmm.
inspire the people around me to have that appreciation, because I realized that all the good things I want in life, they kind of they don't come from anywhere else but from my own pleasure and my own satisfaction with myself and with my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped waiting for everything else to change and really started paying attention to who I am today. So my purpose is really to like adore me as much as I can, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that when I adore myself, when I spend that time to find something extra to be grateful or happy about with me, then all life really just flows in the most beautiful, most magical way. And so little by little, that purpose is learning how to align to that truth. And so it's really, it's becoming a beautiful journey. Like,
I love that. I
yeah.
love that. Not the answer I was expecting. I think not the answer anyone was expecting. But it makes so much sense, because when I was at a point in my life where I felt miserable because I didn't like what I was doing, and I was like, I need to find what I really want to do. I decided to go on a journey to love myself.
Yeah.
And that's when I found it.
Yeah. Same.
And so when people ask me what's my purpose, how do you find my purpose? Honestly, only you can answer that, because your purpose is really about showing up in the world as your most authentic
Sick
self.
self. Yeah.
So if you're being you, your most authentic self, without the fears, without the conditioning, who are you and what would you do?
Yeah.
And this is what your purpose is technically,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I love that. But you know what? I love how you said it's a day-to-day thing for you right now.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the things too. I think so much of my conversations about, so I used to have this obsession. I think that's probably the better way to say it. I used to have this obsession where if there was anything I wanted to solve in life, any one question I could ask God and like God would just give me the answer, I was, I used to get obsessed because I would see these people who come from seemingly very humble, very, meager beginnings in life. And then like, over the course of like 20 years, they would become this larger than life figure. This person, you take somebody like one of I mean, I'm not going to say I worship her, because I probably worship myself a little bit more than I worship her nowadays. But I was obsessed with Oprah for like as long as I could remember. For me, being a little girl that grew up in Cap-Haïtien, like, oh my goodness, like Oprah grew up in like what I consider to be undeyo. Like she grew up in the countryside. Like there was not running water, which for a lot of people I knew, like this wasn't that unusual. And so I said, okay, if someone like Oprah can go from the kind of beginning she had, like how did she become Oprah? You know,
Right. Right.
like, because I'm sure at one point Oprah didn't know what Oprah was gonna be. Like Oprah didn't know how Oprah was gonna get there. And so it kind of began this obsession for me. Like, how do people go from being like these regular people who sort of have like, and this is not any way to denigrate the size or the bigness of anybody's dreams, but like you go from somebody who wants normal things to how do you go from to being somebody who, you know, goes on to change like a generation or to change a culture or to change a society. And then in that process to become incredibly successful in the material sense. But what I've always liked about people like Oprah, and there are plenty of other examples too, is of people that I find that they have material success,
Yeah.
but also seem to be well-balanced people too. Like they also seem to be happy. And so I kind of started being a little obsessed about that and trying to figure out like, what is it that makes someone go? Like, how do you, like, if there's a trigger that you pull, how do you make people go? And so for myself, that was really what began this journey for me. When I got obsessed with like personal development, I got obsessed with, you know, with books, and using that to sort of make myself into something that I could be happy with, that could be acceptable for me. And it was all that. I wanted to become this larger than life person. And then I realized that, first of all, there is no trigger that works once and for all. And that, you know, if you're waiting to love yourself in the future, you're missing out on the opportunity to feel good now. And if you're missing out on the opportunity to feel good now, it's going to be very hard for you to create anything happy, anything that's going to fulfill you, anything that's going to give you peace, any of those things. And for me, it was, I mean, we don't have that much time, so I'm not going to go into that many details about it. But my God, all I can say is every day is a decision. And every day I'm getting better and better at choosing me and at choosing my joy. And what I'm realizing in the process is that what I thought was going to be very self-centered, you know, like this whole loving yourself, taking care of yourself and prioritizing your own needs. I thought that that was going to hurt the people around me. I thought that my kid would suffer. I thought my wife would be mad. And then it turns out they actually like me when I'm happier. So
Right.
it actually worked wonderfully. But I think the most powerful thing for me, and this goes back to the purpose, I realized that by choosing to make that conscious decision every day to prioritize filling up my cup, that decision makes it so much easier for me to be the joy spreader, the life giver, the uplifter, the healer, the person that is always looking to help, because now my timing is absolutely perfect. And that feels absolutely wonderful because I could not have met with you. I've been looking to have this conversation for too long. I could not have this conversation with you had I not been doing that.
No, it's true. It's true. It's alignment. And
yeah,
I think, and I was looking for someone to have that conversation. I was like, she's the perfect person. I mean, you're just perfect for it. No, honestly. And I don't know how I even, because I was making my list of who I really wanted to talk to. And then it just dawned on me like, oh my God, I've listened to her, you know, she wowed me. I need to be talking to you about this. Yes. I love how you talk about not knowing, because I had to learn that myself. Just knowing that loving other people starts with loving yourself. That people are just happier if you love yourself. You know what I mean? People are just happier if you're happy. You just show up as a better person in the world automatically if you're happy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So it's really all about, and it's not selfish when we say you first. Right? And it's Oprah that says, or someone that says that your cup has to feel full first and then
listen, girl, I'm Haitian. Sac vide pas camper. Okay? Okay, so an empty sack is not gonna stand up. It has to be full if you want it to stand up. And I mean, I think particularly as a mom, so I think the next thing for me that becomes an interesting part of my identity is to learn self-love as a conscious parent. So being a Haitian woman, there's so many things, and this is for another conversation, but there's so many things when you're parenting that have to do with control, that have to do with power, more than it has to do with love. You know what I mean? And so going through that process, as I'm also learning how to love myself and becoming more aware of the ways in which I choose to ignore my own needs, have to manage and juggle that with being a mom. Can I tell you, like, I love my son. I always tell people I have the most perfect son, because only my son could have been my son. Because if you hear the stuff this kid says to me, the other day he looked at me, he said, Yaya, have you forgotten the kid inside of you? It blew my mind.
Wow.
That's exactly what I mean by purpose, right? It's like there isn't this big plan that you're going to do. You have your dreams, you have the things that, you know, maybe in a million years or in your wildest dreams, you think that these things are kind of impossible for you, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have a tendency to feel bad about yourself because of where you fall in relation to those dreams. And when Jacob told me that, he asked me that question, and like, he kind of nags me with stuff like that all the time. Like, he's the kind of kid send you over there to go think about stuff. And he said that to me, and it really shifted a lot of things for me, because I realized even in the process of going after what you want,
right,
there are things in your life that you can't allow to break. Like, I can't allow my child, for whatever reason, because if 2020 has taught us anything, it's that time is very precious. And so if we have the time, there's nothing in the world that's really going to be more important than being a love, being a joy, being a peace, being just a positive symbol in the lives of the people who matter to you most. And so when he said that, I kid you not, it helped me remember how, as much as he likes to play, as much as he's curious, as much as he loves to explore and go on adventures, it immediately made me remember, well, that is true. I did used to like going on adventures. Right. I did used to like doing stuff. Like, when did I forget how to have a good time with my life? When did I forget how to have fun? And when did I start telling myself that that wasn't in the cards for me anymore? And it's those little like adjustments, I would say, that in the grand scheme of my life, even though I've studied these things a lot, there's nothing like the little wisdom that you pick up just by paying attention to your kids and listening to the questions that they ask you, but also when you're sitting under the mouth of elders who tell you, like, there really is nothing. You think you're chasing after all this stuff, you're chasing after money, you're chasing after fame, you're chasing after success. At the end of the day, if your life doesn't feel good to you, if you don't feel good to you, right. I've come to learn that the success, though it may look good to the outside world, when it leaves you feeling empty, when you feel like you're working on behalf of a cause or on behalf of individuals that do not believe in any of the things that you believe in, all of those things for me started to compile a little bit. They started to a little bit. And it took several conversations like that one with Jacob, where he was like, there's more to you than this angst about all the things you have not yet done. Like, there's so much more to you. Like, you're so much brighter. You're so much happier. And so I started to start paying attention to those things, and it made a world of difference for me.
Wow, it's exactly what I had to learn this year. It's honestly, well, this year has been weird for me because I've left my regular banking job earlier this year because I wanted to find something that I really wanted to do, and it took me in a completely different path that I never thought that I would be in. And I get so impatient with myself right now, but it's reminding myself to live in the present, right? To be present.
Oh yeah.
And then not to forget to have fun, because somehow growing up, life became less about, if you look at kids, they can just fully be present and fully play all day, and somehow someday that stops and it becomes about surviving.
Yeah,
just about
responsibility. Oh, I hate that one. Responsibility.
Oh yeah, exactly that. but it's, for me, it changed the day that I realized that I had a choice.
Yes.
You know, I had a choice in the way that I receive things, the way that I process things. Every moment of my day is a choice. You know, waking up, you know, it's a choice. Whatever you're going to do is a choice. And you can change your thoughts and you can. So all of that just made me realize, oh my God, I have a choice and I can change my life and I can have more fun with my life. I can be more present. But again, it's easier said than done. But, you know, it's possible and we can do that. And this
further. So while it might be easier said than done, it's not as hard as you think. It's probably my favorite way to say it. Because, you know, I have to say that before, okay, so I used to approach life very much through my thoughts. I used to, you know, I was the girl that, you know, you asked me what my goals were. I was the person that was always ready to tell you what my goals were. And not only were my goals always very clear to me, I spent so much time thinking about all the different contours of my goals. I was very specific. I mean, the SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, all that. I live by those things. Like, I had my plans. I remember telling the story one time, like, by the time I was 20, I had already decided that I was going to live a very long time. So I knew I was going to live into my hundreds. And so I decided when I was 20 that I'm going to map out the following 8 decades of my life. I remember I put 1 decade for writing books. I put 1 decade for being an entrepreneur. I put 1 decade for being a consultant. I put 1 decade for being a mom and a spouse. What fucked me up, Woodlyne, excuse my language, everybody, but what messed me up was that what I put for 8 decades, I managed to do in a decade.
Of course.
So, and this is for me the part about life that sometimes is hard to accept when we're young. My dad used to tell me that all the time. He's like, by the time I was 30, I did everything I planned on doing, and yet I still fell for it because the essential part of his wisdom was hard for me to grasp, which is this: you're never going to stop wanting more.
Right.
Never.
Right.
Every goal you have, there's going to be, you're going to reach it, and then you're going to want the goal after. The day you stop wanting more is the day you also die. So if you can make peace with the fact that you're on this never-ending cycle of always wanting more, that means that every time you achieve a goal, you're going to get to the goal, then you're going to say, something about this dissatisfies me. I want something more on top of it.
Right.
And it's that feeling, is how we navigate that space of wanting more. For me, that is the thing that when I was a kid, they did not prepare me for. Because they tell you to go for the house, go for the husband, go for the kids, go for the career, go for the money. But what they don't tell you, well, okay, so what happens when you're 35 and you have the house, you have the husband, you have the career, and you're still unhappy? What happens then? What happens if, you know, the kids are now not babies anymore? Now they're 10. Now they're giving you problems. Now they're stressing you out. What happened if your husband, who you met, when you met him, he was an accountant. Now he wants to play music. When you met him, you were happy to be at home, but now you want a career. Like, these are the things that, for me at least, I could not have it anticipated that the journey would be one of not how to get to where you want to go, but how to enjoy the ride. Because what I realized was that I spent 7 years trying to reach all these goals. Some of them I reached, some of them I didn't reach. But at the end of 7 years, my God, you know, instead of feeling alive, what it did was I felt deflated. Because now I was in the middle of a cycle. Now I've got a young kid, I've got a wife, I've got a family. And this question of how do I manage my fulfillment? How do I manage my happiness? Which, as you remember, is the thing I've always been obsessed about. I couldn't solve for that. I couldn't solve for the fact that here I am, I have this amazing spouse, I have this amazing kid, I have what on the outside looks like an amazing job. Right. And, you know, I'm normally a pretty happy person. But I couldn't, you have the pandemic, you have cops killing police every day. Like, I lost it. I lost my shit. I'm not gonna lie to anybody. I lost it. Right. And I lost it for good reason, because what I'm realizing is, thank God I lost it, because if anyone was gonna lose their shit, it was gonna be me, because life is not gonna kick me down and me stay down. That's just not the person I am. Right. So I've always been aware that there's something about what I'm going through that can really, and with the level of, the way I pay attention to what's going on in me, right, but also what's going on around me, I knew that if there was something to learn from the tumultuous nature of last year, this year, you know, coming of age, maturing, coming into adulthood, and trying to, you know, break all these generational cycles of unhappiness, of lack of fulfillment, of misery, of trauma, all these things, it was so important for me to learn how to find those things within me, because I was tired of knowing that everybody always says it's inside of you. You don't have to look for it outside in the world. But I was fortunate enough that because I've always wanted to teach, I've always wanted to uplift, my life has really become the kind of life that I can pay attention to. And I can learn directly what are some lessons that for me make sense, but that I can share with others that can help them to make sense of their journey. And yeah.
How did you learn that though? How did you go from, from being in that place where, you know, you're losing it to, you know, no, I have, you know?
Well, I think, you know, and I was thinking about this a lot because I knew that this conversation was coming up, and it's my first time really taking the time to talk about it. But I would say for me, being happy is not, it's not for me a superficial thing. It's not a vain thing. For me, if you're alive and you're not happy, I really don't see the purpose of life. If you're alive and you can't find your happiness, for me at least, it's very hard to figure out why should I keep on going? Like, I don't want to be that kind of mom who's unhappy. I want to be the mom that teaches my kids how to have joy. Same thing for all the aspects of my life. So when I started on this, I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I'm a student of law of attraction. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of stuff I read. There's a lot of spiritual practices I have. Traveling and living in Asia taught me to have an appreciation for learning to be mindful, you know, for learning to be present. And I think this year was the year that it stopped being theory, but it started being practice. And I have to admit, the best thing that happened to me was to have a really good reason as to why learning how to be happy when there's no reason to be happy became for me the only gift that I could give to myself. It was the only gift worth giving. And it was the reason why I realized I don't need any more motivation in life to get anything I want, because my reason for needing the happiness was so strong that every morning when I wake up, it's easy for me to pick up my gratitude journal. Every morning when I wake up, it's easy for me to start my day with meditation. Every morning when I wake up, like, it's so, I don't need to get bogged down with the pressures of yesterday, what happened yesterday, you know, what I think about, you know, somebody said to me, or whether or not I should be angry or any of those things. I start my day as positive as I can, and I'm determined as hell to start it that way. There's a lot of people who, you know, who normally I spend a lot of time with. Now I know until my cup is full, I don't have anything to share with anyone. So I start my day focused on me. And that perhaps is the one thing I think, if anyone is looking to change their life and they feel stuck, start with gratitude.
Right.
Start with gratitude. And then
all about gratitude, yeah. Find
your way into learning to say, I love you when you look into the mirror. For me, I can't, like, I swear by this, because I remember the day I looked in the mirror and I said, you know what? I don't love you yet, but I want to love you. And I said to myself, the day I said that was the day my life changed, because everything that happened after that, really, it's like a movie.
Wow. That's crazy, because I force myself to say I love you even when I don't feel it. But to say I don't love you, but I want to, that's powerful.
You have to be honest with yourself. Yeah. That I've learned too. You know, I learned that I don't need to pull off, like, to rip off the Band-Aid on me. There are traumas that I've experienced in life. I used to be the kind of person that liked to excavate old traumas because I thought that there was something broken about me that I needed to fix. And all that did was re-traumatize me. All that did was bring me back to the pits of hell. And so I now very clearly, consciously, deliberately, I don't look to re-traumatize myself. And I specifically I don't encourage people to re-traumatize themselves.
Right.
Your focus should always be forward if you're looking for happy. Happy is not in the past, happy is now. And no matter what you went through, I'm here to tell you, and again, I have very good reason for being able to say this, but you can forgive. You can let go. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's like the intention to eventually love myself, which now I'm happy to say every time I look in the mirror, I love you, Gaëlle, and I blow myself a kiss because it just comes naturally to me now. But a year ago, I had to practice. I had to start from the place of, hey, I'm not there yet, but I know that whatever it is in life I want, whatever is that's going to come to me with ease, it's not going to come through a gate of me being unhappy with me. It's going to come when I'm happy with me, when I can recognize, look at all the stuff you've been through and look at how you're still standing. Wow. Look at how you're still standing. Look at how your smile is still bright. Look at how you can still love. Look at how you can still find peace. Look at how the sun still shines for you. Look at how the butterflies still sing, like still fly. Like, I get a little obsessive, and my wife is looking at me in the corner right now. She's like, oh my God, this is the same speech I hear every day.
Do you guys see things the same way?
But it really is that way for those people asking. You really do have to be a little bit, you have to be a little bit kooky about it, I think, in the beginning, because you have to form new habits. Absolutely. You have to form new habits with the way your mind works. And to form new habits with the way your mind works is like teaching an old dog new tricks. You have to every time, like you have no idea. The things I've noticed now, I never would have noticed before. How many conversations people have where they're whining or complaining?
Oh, exactly.
Conversations people have where they're talking nonstop about problems. And there's nothing wrong with problems. I mean, you're not blind. You have your life.
Right.
I went so many months, and I'm not ashamed to say this, I went so many months trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. Money wasn't always easy.
Right.
I had plenty of reason to complain with a lot of people who complain of, you know, cash shortage, opportunity shortage, whatever the case may be. But I can also say that nothing good came to me while I was complaining. But everything good started flowing to me the day that I made it my choice to start being grateful, even when I felt like I didn't have a reason. And that's the part about doing this that seems hard, but it actually is just, you have to change your mind. You have to want to free yourself. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people may be living a life where it's difficult for them to really evaluate the true cost of the status quo versus the true cost of changing things for themselves and approaching life with a little bit more gratitude and satisfaction. Yeah.
Love it.
I talk to people, so.
Listen, sorry. Does your partner, does she see things the way you see it?
Yeah, she does. We've always been sort of geeks about this. So we met about 10 years ago. And we have a lot of similar interests, but I would say that she is someone that taught me a lot about even just the universe and how it operates.
Right.
I remember even before I really understood what karma was or what the law of attraction was, or, you know, different levels of consciousness or any of those interesting topics, he was already talking about those things. But I think where we differ is that, like, I've gotten to the point where she gave me something and then I went and I went far beyond where our conversation started, because this, again, for me, is the number one question to ask. How do you be happy becoming all that you can be? Right. Because if you lose the happiness on your way to becoming it, like, then what is the purpose of it all?
Right. I am determined to be happy in every area of my life and not to settle in any area of my life. So it's a journey for sure. Yeah. I want to go back to your childhood. I want to talk about the fact that you're a queer woman who grew up in a very conservative country. And I think it's important that we talk about this.
Oh, Lord. So this was my childhood. God, I don't know where to start. So I have a lot of friends that are on here. Hi, everybody. God, what was it like? I want to say, Jesus, this is a hard one for me to answer because I had an upbringing that was, so I grew up in Haiti, and while I grew up in Cap-Haïtien, I was actually born and I lived outside of town. So I lived in Quartier-Morin. And my dad had a distillery. So I grew up around like, you know, like farmers. I grew up around like a lot of cows. I used to ride my bike to the river. So I had a home life that was very country, but my life outside of home was very expansive. It was very global. I remember, you know, obviously traveling since I was very young. And the friends I had were all people who, you know, similar lives. Like we all traveled a lot. Like all my friends, even though we were in Haiti, like we all spoke English, which was, now that I'm thinking about, I'm like, why would we like this? It was so weird. But growing up in the countryside, I think, and then being gay, it was so interesting because it showed me that a lot of people who are gay in Haiti, they kind of live like in an open secret. And when I was in Haiti, I can't say that I was fully sure that I was gay. I think I was I was curious. I knew for sure I was different. But the conception of being gay, of being queer, all those things didn't come until America. Because in Haiti, I mean, all I knew were, I mean, I knew a few gay people, but I didn't really know them. I saw them in the community. I saw how people treated them. And sometimes it was, but sometimes it wasn't so nice. Sometimes I witnessed a lot of mocking. I witnessed a lot of denigrating. You know, and as I got older, a lot of those attitudes stayed within me. So I remember when me and Vanessa first met, we were living in Haiti. Oh my God. The stupidity. It's probably the best way I can say it because she was raised in America. So imagine now she's living in Haiti and I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't want to lose my job here. And like navigating all those very interesting things, attitude with family. It was very complicated. But my decision about my queerness was kind of like my decision about everything else in my life. I just got to a point where I was like, basically, this is just me. Like, I love what I love. And I'm proud of my family. I have a very happy, very loving family. I have the best wife in the world. She's first of all, my wife is the reason I can talk to you comfortably about this because my wife is my first client. She was the first person that I helped to align themselves to their path to becoming who they want to be. And so like, for me, she's my pride and joy because she was the first person that helped me believe in me. And like, you know, in kind, what I did was I poured everything that I knew into her. And so to watch her turn into the beautiful person that she is and to have a career that's rewarding where she's having fun, I get to take pictures and I get to travel and I get to do all these
cool she's things. A photographer, right?
Yeah, she's a photographer, a professor. She's like a Renaissance woman, a jack of all trades. But honestly, all this stuff that I talk about is not just talk. Like, this is what our family lives by. These are really like, it's for us, it's a little bit beyond the theory. This is our life. And being queer fits into that same pattern too. The country, people have all the kinds of attitudes, but I've always been very fortunate. The people that I grew up with, the friends that I've always had, have always had my back. So even when I wasn't sure about my sexuality, God, oh my God, all my friends were always supportive of me. Like, they would, you know, when I would be secret, I'm like, oh my God, I have a crush on so-and-so. They would be like, oh, you got a crush on so-and-so? Oh my God, you think they like girls? I'm like, I don't know if they like girls. Well, you better be careful.
How did your parents receive it? And what's your relationship like with them right now?
So my relationship with my parents, I think my parents, they both took it different ways. My dad, I have an interesting dad. My dad never said anything to me about it. And I thought he was cool with it. But like, And as a parent now, I'm starting to understand his perspective. You know, when you, I don't know if you have any kids, but sometimes there are things kids tell you. And
I have my
the
nephews.
kid tells you something, and you're like, can you believe what this child just said to me? And so my dad had a similar reaction. He went to my mom and he was like, can you believe what this child said to me? But in front
How
of
old were you about?
God, I was like 20. I wasn't even young. And he was like, oh. But to me, he's always been just very accepting. He listens to what I have to say. But I think in terms of like, you know, is he like engaged in my life? Does he, you know, it's like he's going to go stand at gay pride for me. I don't think my dad's going to go to gay pride. You know, as far as making sure that I'm okay, you know, making sure that my family treats me well or that people that I'm around treat me well and all those things, he always has my back.
That's
so
good.
pretty cool. Yeah.
To still have their support in that way.
Oh yeah, no, it's I mean, it's been tricky and we've learned a lot along the way. It's probably the best way I can say it. But it's really nice to know for sure that you're surrounded by love and you're surrounded by family. And at the end of the day, you know, I'm at a place now where whatever my parents or anybody else thinks for that matter, it kind of doesn't matter to me because the people who love me are still here. So
when did you, and I guess, I don't know if the fact that you've always felt supported, I'm going to end it very quickly because I know you have to go. But I don't know if the fact that you've always felt kind of supported played a role in that and in helping you show up as you say, I'm going to be who I am no matter what.
You know, I don't know if it's that I felt supported because I have to be honest with you. Like, I think there's a difference between the perception that other people have and, you know, obviously the reality that you as the person living your life, you understand it. My sexuality for me has never been a topic of discussion. It just has never been. So even though I was growing up in Haiti and I've always been a tomboy, there's always been, you know, like, you know, I dress a certain way. I guess, you know, if you're interested in people who are gay or people who are queer, you can kind of look at me and be like, I guess she kind of looks gay or like, you know, whatever. And there's always going to be some of that. But to be quite honest with you, even for me, up until I was 20, you couldn't tell me that I was gay. So, it's like, there's so much about people's perceptions that doesn't even match the reality. My conception of even being with a woman didn't come until I was much later in life because it didn't, not because I didn't think about those things, but like that was just not the most important thing to me. When I was 20 and I was thinking about my life, yes, I wanted love. Yes, I wanted to date, but like I wasn't one of those women that was looking to marry. I was one of those women that was excited about my life, excited about writing books, excited about making movies, excited about consulting, excited about changing the world.
Right.
Who I was going to settle with, what kind of family I was going to have, where I was going to live. Those are things that day by day, as the, you know, choices and opportunities come, I make those decisions. But what has always remained true for me is that my life is centered around being fulfilled and being all that I can be. And my sexuality, while a fun part of who I am, chamas, I don't give anybody the time or the space to have their perceptions of me be what dictates my reality. So because I've always been that person, people can think what they want to think. I can be in Haiti, I can be in Bali, I can be wherever I want to be. Me and my family gonna move how we gonna move. We gonna do what we gonna do. And hopefully it doesn't offend people, but if it does, too bad. We're not hurt.
Love it. One last thing. What is it? More just advice for people who are looking for, who wants that confidence in being who they are.
I think you said it in the beginning. The path is through self-love. We are all so much more worthy than we know. We are all so much more loved than we know. I used to say that the universe, you know, is conspiring for my good. but I didn't really have life experience to say that I know that for sure. And so if anybody, no matter where they're on the spectrum, one question that every day helps me focus on the present is, how do I feel right now? Is what I'm thinking about going to make me feel better, or is it going to make me feel worse?
Right.
Sometimes when I'm angry, let's say something happens, somebody cuts me off, and I get angry, it might feel a little bit better for me to blame the guy who cut me off than it does to stay angry. Sometimes if I'm feeling bored, it might feel better for me to go blow bubbles outside with my son than to sit inside and stress out about something I can't change. And it's your ability to decide moment to moment. That's what determines the trajectory of your life.
Right.
There's nothing else. It's your moment to moment decisions. Choose to feel good. That's it.
That's it. I love it. Thank you so, so much. I know you have to go. Thank you to your wife for allowing us to have that conversation today.
You hear in the background saying you're welcome?
So go enjoy your Thanksgiving.
Will, this was so delightful, Woodlyne. Thank you so much. And just know, and me, I'm happy to come back anytime.
We definitely need to do a part 2.
Yeah, so I'm happy. I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation.
I hope so too.
Yeah, follow me on IG, Gaëlle Prophète. This was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right, have a good night.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
How do I end this?